first of all, just insane that there are no Big Ten teams, no Pac-12 teams in the tournament. I mean, Emily, if you would have told me that before the season, I don't think I would have ever believed you. I mean, what do you think that even says about the sport of volleyball right now?
I can't believe it. I mean, it is the first time ever in this tournament that we haven't seen a Pac-12 team. There's no Big Ten team in it. But I think what it does show is there's so much parity between all these teams right now. I mean, to have a non-Power 5 team in San Diego in the national championships in the Final Four weekend, that is not something I would have thought at the beginning of the season. But I think coming into it really just shows that there's a lot of players that don't just want to play at the top programs. They want to go to other teams. They want to play for teams that could be in contention for a Final Four, could be in contention for a national title, but maybe aren't those top programs that we see every year. So while it is super surprising, it's also not, because we're seeing this parity across the board.
Yes, and it just shows so much about how much the sport is growing just across the board. Let's talk about the regional finals. I want to hear your favorite moment or moments from it, because obviously we had a few. Emily, mine, it's got to be that fifth set between Pitt and Wisconsin. That was the craziest match I saw. Obviously, we had the five-setter with Oregon and Louisville as well, but they were on. Wisconsin was in the midst of a 6-0 run. Julia Orgel had, three in a row, 3 kills back to back to back. I did not think Pitt was coming back. I just think it shows so much composure, just a gutsy performance. I think Bazario and Valeria Vasquez Gomez combined for 3 in a row to end that set. It was on the edge of my seat.
Crazy,
that was my favorite moment by
there were
far.
so many 5-setters, but for some reason that one just felt like it kind of pulled you in more, just because Pitt was up 11-6. Somehow Wisconsin comes back in it. And at that point especially, I mean, you're playing at the field house. It's one of the toughest places to play in the entire country. I've never heard it that loud before. And even not being there, but watching on TV, you could tell that that place was absolutely rocking. So when Wisconsin comes back, you have the crowd's momentum. This team is on a complete roll. And so when you have that happening, when you have Wisconsin tie it up at 11-11, that was a time where it was like, all right, Wisconsin might actually take this. They go up 13-12, but Pitt doesn't back down.
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest thing that I took from that game was this Pitt team is so experienced. They have one of the best head coaches right now in college volleyball. He's consistently getting his team up, ready to play. Doesn't matter what's going on around him. That crowd was just completely crazy behind him, but they stayed completely unrattled. They stayed fully composed, and they were still able to win that set. And I agree, that was one of the most exciting matches, I think, from the entire tournament, with all the 5-setters, the crazy 5-setters that we've seen. That one was crazy.
Absolutely. And you got to think about Pitt, just giving them so much credit because of how much talent they lost last year. I mean, Kayla Lund, Lekator member Monet, Janaza Ende, they lost so much of their talent, and to see them come back and make it back to the semifinals, taking down what I thought was maybe the hottest team in the tournament in Wisconsin and the reigning champs. I mean, I just give them and Dan Fisher so much credit for where they are right now. I want to turn the attention to San Diego over Stanford. I mean, the storyline there, we knew that San Diego missed out on that number 1 seed. They had the chance to take on Stanford and basically prove everybody wrong with that game. And they did it. I mean, what did you see in that match? Obviously, what I noticed, so much balance across the board. 4 players, 14 kills?
I agree.
What did you think of that matchup?
So it was such a fun match because we've been talking about this San Diego team for weeks now. I mean, really since the committee did its first reveal. And this is a team that has consistently shown that they can hang with the top dogs. And this was the first time that we saw them, I think, really on a national scale do that in front of a very large audience. And I think this is the first time that people really see that the San Diego team was legit. It shouldn't have taken this long to figure that out. And of course, that's a team that I'm sure would have loved to be a 1 seed, but at the end of the day, like, it didn't matter. They still took down the number 1 seed. They're still in the Final Four.
Right.
They beat the team on the road, which is even harder to do. That team looks so good. It was so exciting for them to go into Stanford, one of the best teams in the entire country year in and year out. A team that's gotten back on top, took a few years down, but then to beat them on their home court in the regional finals, it was crazy. And I agree. It was so balanced. That was one thing that I noticed was Gabby Blossom was distributing the offense so well. I mean, she was just slinging it out to the outside, to the right side. She was doing such a phenomenal job. I think the other difference maker for me was the blocking. I thought that in key moments, I thought players like Bree Edwards really stepped up. And that's something that they have to translate to Texas,
Yeah.
because if they're not having a good blocking night, it could be a short night for San Diego.
Yeah. And Layla Blackwell as well. I think she brought in 7 blocks on top of that. She also, I can't remember how many kills she had, but she just had a really great night. She was kind of an X factor as well. But then you mentioned it. They have to be able to have that block against Texas. You think about Texas being such a good blocking team, such a good serving team. I mean, their hitters can go up and over the block, Emily. So that's why I'm like, what has to happen here for San Diego to compete with Texas? Does it come down to serve and pass? Do they have to keep up with Logan Eggleston's tough serve, with Texas's tough
Well,
serve?
look here, the number one thing that they have to do is try to figure out how to slow down Logan Eggleston and slow down Skinner. And those are 2 players that you can't shut down, because they are always going to have a pretty good match. But you have to find a way to touch them up. You have to find a way to slow them down. And the other thing, you got to keep up in the serve and pass battle. That's what happened with Ohio State. They couldn't keep up in the serve pass battle. Texas was serving them off the floor at sometimes. And you have to be able, as a serve receive, to completely forget the last point, step in, pass a good ball. And also from the service line, you got to put in tough serves. I mean, when Texas can distribute their offense in a balanced way, getting Asia O'Neal involved, getting their other middle involved, whoever it may be, it's kind of game over. You get Molly Phillips involved. I mean, you can't let this team, Kayla Caffey, if she's in there, you can't let this team have a balanced offense. You have to make them a little bit more predictable in the sense of, slinging the ball up to the outside and hoping that your out of system block can, get up there in time, get a touch, maybe get a shutdown. But that serve receive has to be unlocked. Their serving has to be unlocked. And then you got to slow down Eggleston and Skinner. But I don't know if that's possible. So we'll see.
I know, and that's what we both have been harping on all season. They just have so much that it's so hard to stop them. I mean, even if you are able to keep up in that serve receive, they're still going to stay in system. They're just so good in the backcourt now, and when they're in system, they just get rolling out of the middle, and it's so dangerous. And another factor too, think about players like Logan Eggleston. She's back here. This is how many times she's been here now. Maddie Skinner won a national title. They just have the experience on this stage that San Diego doesn't. But you can't underestimate San Diego. I mean,
something
they're here,
that
right?
I think
they're here.
I've been talking a lot about has just been the experience factor in the tournament. And for a team like Louisville and a team like Pitt, 2 teams that were in the Final Four last season, a team like Texas, who has a lot of veteran players that maybe haven't been on those stages where a lot of them have. But you take a player like Zoe Fleck. I mean, this is really her first time in these kind of really big moment situations. But you have to think that experience has to matter a little bit. And for a team like San Diego, I'm not worried about it, because at the end of the day, they're playing the number 1 overall seed. They have nothing to lose. All the pressure is on Texas. But I'm still wondering, how this Texas team will do with all that pressure on them. I would give Logan Eggleston a ball with any pressure situation at any time of the day, 100%. But I do wonder how the other players on this team will handle that really big pressure of, okay, we're the number 1 overall seed. They've been talking about us to win this tournament since day one. We've been talking about wanting to win this tournament since day one. So I'm just wondering how these players will step up in those big moments. But from what we've seen from them, I mean, they've been stepping up. So I'm not necessarily worried, but I am wondering how dominant they will look in this big situation on Thursday.
And they'll need those other players, because Stanford relied really heavily on Kendall Kipp, and obviously that wasn't enough in the end. All right, let's move on to Louisville versus Pitt in the second semifinal. So this is the third rematch. I mean, the first one we saw, Pitt came out, I mean, totally caught Louisville off guard with Bazario. I mean, they were just slinging it, and it was just kind of a bloodbath to start. Obviously, Louisville crawled back in, but Pitt ultimately won it in 5. Then the next one, Louisville hasn't had a slow start since that Pitt matchup and then that Georgia Tech matchup that they came back from down 2-0. So they came out against Pitt the second round and dominated in every facet of the game. I mean, they outblocked them 12-5. They had 8 service aces. The Panthers only had 1. They totaled 32 digs, and then also had 7 fewer attacking errors. Pitt just really struggled in the serve and pass. Well, I don't know what we're going to see in this matchup. Also 2 totally different things.
To me, this Pitt team looks a lot different than they looked a few weeks ago. And I think a lot of that is just coming from maturity and big players stepping up at big times. But I also think just across the board, they look a lot more fine-tuned. I think it takes a lot of time for a 6-2 offense to figure out, those setter hitter connections, figure out, passing next to certain people, always having 3 hitters up front, always having 3 blockers up front. It really makes a difference when you're playing on a team like that to kind of figure out those nuts and bolts early on. And yes, that game was just a few weeks ago, but I do think this Pitt team throughout the tournament has gotten so much better. And they're really like rising to the occasion in some of these really big moments on the biggest stages, on the road against Wisconsin, which we already talked about. But I think this team is different than the Pitt team that we've seen. They've become a lot more balanced. They're getting other people involved in the offense. I think Courtney Bizzarrio is a fantastic player, but I think they have to keep that balance. They can't just give her every single ball because she can't do it on her own. But on the experience point, I do wonder how a player like Courtney Bizzarrio will step up during this time. I mean, she's never been in this situation. I mean, she was on an Iowa team that was near the bottom of the Big Ten every single year. This is the first time for her that she's in this situation. While there's other people on this Pitt team that have been there, she's one player that they rely on so heavily. And I want to see her step up, and I want to see her completely go off. It would be so much fun. On the flip side, you have a Louisville team that is very experienced. They have Elena Scott back, who I think is the difference maker. She was a difference maker during that second time they played Pitt, which I thought was one of the reasons they swept them. She stepped in there and did a phenomenal job. But I do wonder, I think what Pitt has to do really well is slow down their outsides. You have to slow down Elena Scott, and you have to slow down Claire Chaussee. Those are 2 of the best outsides, one of the best outside duos in the entire country. You have to be able to slow them down, touch them up, take a little bit of speed off of their swings, because if one of them gets going, they can take over the match.
I think you mean Anna DeBeer back from the injury. That is the one. That's what I'm most looking forward to seeing, because they totally the sweep was without DeBeer. I mean, and now she had 17 kills in that 5-set win over Oregon. So I'm excited to see the matchup. I mean, it's so cool that we're going to see 2 teams that are really familiar with each other on this big stage. I think it's going to make for even better volleyball, because they kind of know what they've got going in, and they're going to be really prepared for this matchup. So I'm so excited for it. I think we've got 2 really good
and you think about it,
matchups.
One more thing. With DeBeer, you have to think, yes, she was injured for so long, but in a way, she's had so much time to rehab. Right. She looks really fresh out there, which I think is one thing that we're not talking about enough. Yes, she's coming back from injury, but I think she looks springy. I mean, she's getting up there. She's throwing in shots that I don't think we saw from her in the beginning of the season. It seems like when she took a step off the court when she was injured, it looks like she has a new, presence on the court. She looks like she's hitting shots that we haven't seen. She's become a student of the game a little bit more, because she was able to kind of study it on the sidelines, figured out what works in what situations, kind of be a coach in that sense. And I think having DeBeer step back on the court, she's done a phenomenal job in that way, just really looking like a different player than we saw earlier.
Yeah, I agree, Emily. I was actually at the Georgia Tech Louisville game, and I got to go into the locker room after the game. She was playing in the back row at that time, but just hearing the way she spoke to her team, I mean, she is the leader. She is the one that's talking about what they did wrong and what they adjusted. And I agree. Her being out for that long, I think just only makes her even stronger now coming in. And I think it's really dangerous. Okay. Let's do some new predictions. We've done it a million times, but 2 semifinals. Let's do our winners and champ winner. I mean, we both picked Texas in our bracket. So who do you got winning in each semifinal?
Are we going games 2? Can I give set numbers maybe? Make it a little fun. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
let's do
Texas, San Diego. I think that one will go 4, and I think Texas is going to come out with it. I just think again, they are the most dominant team right now. I think they're going to rise up to the occasion. I do think San Diego is going to put up a fight. I will say I don't think these sets are going to be blowouts, but I do think Texas is going to win that one. On the other side of the bracket, I think Louisville is going to come out in 5. I think it's probably going to be the most exciting game, one of the biggest battles that we've seen, but I think Louisville is going to get it. I mean, I think this team is rising up at the right times. I think they're going to handle a very tough Pitt team, but again, I think it's going to go 5. I think it'll be fun. I got Texas, Louisville in the championship match. I'm going with Texas. I'll go Texas in 4, I think.
Okay. I hate that I let you go first, because now it looks like I've got the same answers, but I swear, I have obviously Texas going to the championship. I do think San Diego will be able to take a set just because, I mean, a lot of teams have been able to take a set from Texas. It's not like they do sweep everybody. I mean, think Ohio State, all those teams, but I don't think anybody, I think they'll win it. And then I'm going with Louisville too, headed to the championship. And then I think that the championship game is going to go to 5. I think Louisville really has what it takes to push it all the way. And then I'm gonna keep my pick. I'm not changing it now at the end of the season. I mean, Texas has been my pick the whole way, so I'm going Texas in 5 for the title. And then switching over to Player of the Year and Freshman of the Year predictions, I'm staying with Logan Eggleston. I tweeted about it during the tournament. Everybody in the entire gym knows the ball is going to her, and that's the difference in a National Player of the Year type player is she gets it done anyways. So it's
exactly what you said. I mean, every single person in the gym, especially when the game's tight, everybody knows where the ball's going. It doesn't matter if Eggleston is in the front row or the back row. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Chuck it up to her. She's gonna find a way to get a kill. Doesn't always have to be pretty. She's gonna find a way to do it. She does such a good job seeing the defense on the other side. She can place the ball perfectly. There is no other player, in my opinion, that can take over a game as much as Logan Eggleston can, and is so integral in that Texas team. Look, I think they're a good team if they didn't have her or not, but I still think Logan is the difference maker to get the job done and to get that team a national title. And even if they don't, I still think she's probably the best person on the court in any court you put her on.
Yep, and if she didn't get it, I mean, I'm going to be absolutely shocked, Emily. I mean, I don't think there's going to be a world where she doesn't get it. Freshman of the Year, I think Mimi Collier made her case and point with the Oregon run in the tournament. I mean, you think about a freshman dominating on the biggest stage. They took down Nebraska. That was something that a game you talked about early on. You were like, I want to pick Oregon to beat Nebraska. I think it could happen. They did, obviously. And then they almost took down Louisville. They're not doing that without Collier. So I think freshman of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the announcement this morning and was not shocked at all. I mean, yes, Mimi Collier, I think she's so much, obviously, she's just so deserving. And the other candidates that I know we talked about last time, but Eva Hudson from Purdue, I think the numbers that she puts up are the best. I mean, she leads all D1 freshmen in kills per set, but where Mimi Collier is the difference is she's also splitting a lot of attempts with Brooke Nunneveller, one of the best outsides in the country. Whereas Eva Hudson, she's getting pretty much every ball for Purdue, or she did all last season. So where Mimi stands out is she's getting like almost half the attempts, but still getting the same amount of kills. And I think that's crazy to do as a freshman outside hitter on one of the best teams in the country. You have to handle so much as an outside, from passing, blocking, hitting, obviously. And it's so difficult to do as a freshman on one of the best teams in the country to handle that big load. And I think Collier did a phenomenal job of that all season long.
Yeah, so congratulations to Collier, obviously, well deserved, and just so excited for Friday when we finally hear Player of the Year. And I think it's going to go Eggleston. So Emily, we've got 2 great semifinals. Thank you for breaking them down. You are a trooper for joining when I know you're.
I'm sorry I sound
under the weather. So I hope you get to feel
better.
Bad,
thank you, but I am so excited for tomorrow. It is going to be so much fun. I mean, these Final Four games, we've seen it for the last 2 years. I mean, they've been so exciting, and I don't anticipate that slowing down anytime soon. And Saturday is going to be really fun when we get to crown a winner.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for joining and listening to our preview. And Emily, as always, it's so much fun. Thanks so much, and get ready for some great volleyball, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening in.